Welcome back, everybody, to the MMA Vivisection. I say back because we were just here yesterday talking about UFC 220, and now we're with you once again to talk about Bellator 192. This is Zane Simon, joined by Eddie Mercado and Victor Rodriguez. And for God knows what reason, I mean, we talked about this a little recently, that like these organizations, I think they just don't. They pick good dates that are supposed to be good for anything, and they don't pay attention to what everybody else is doing. But Bellator is going fucking head-to-head with UFC 220 this weekend, and that means that we've got a Bellator show to talk about that literally nobody's going to watch.
You know, I actually tweeted out right before the show. I said Bellator finished up 2017 on a tape delay, and they're starting out 2018 on DVR.
Yeah.
What a shame. Like, how unfortunate, because this is actually a pretty good card.
Oh, yeah.
No one's going to watch it live.
No. Vic was trying to convince us briefly before the show started.
Was it?
There was a real discussion here about going head-to-head. Which do you pick, Bellator 192 or UFC 220?
Let's be real. That's not exactly what I was going with, but sure, fine.
Hey, why would you even raise the question?
I was curious. I wanted to get a read on what you guys thought about the whole thing because, you know, I'm not seeing too much chatter as far as, you know, what we usually get with these head-to-head cards, right? There's usually a lot of griping and complaining about how, yeah, they probably shouldn't go head-to-head, which I agree with. You know, it's not professional wrestling. You don't plan this, and you want to appreciate these cards for what they are. If this had not been going up against the UFC, people wouldn't be so glum about the whole thing, right? But I don't know. I just kind of wanted to get a read on what you guys thought, and actually be interesting to see what some of the viewers or readers might think as to whether or not, you know, gun to their head, if you only could stick with one event the whole night, which you would go with.
Okay.
I don't think there's too much enthusiasm for the Bellator one, obviously, and you guys kind of agreed on that.
Vic is treading the middle way line of I took no sides.
I'm asking. I was legit curious. I mean, I would have owned it otherwise.
Whatever.
I will say this, to be fair, if I could not afford to buy the pay-per-view, I would be watching the Bellator card.
Oh, yeah. That's unquestionably the case.
Yeah.
And if I couldn't get a good stream.
Hey, what? No.
No.
I meant on Fight Pass because sometimes.
Yeah, on Fight. There you go.
Sometimes it goes out.
Fucking guys.
Anyway, so the thing is that what it really all comes down to, even for me, we were talking about this, is honestly Francis Ngannou is must watch right now, and that fight with Stipe Miocic is the must watch thing, and all other things have to, like, anything else has to be pushed to the back. It doesn't matter if the rest of the UFC card is not as deep with names and fascinating, you know, fights that get fans excited as it could be. Doesn't matter that most of this Bellator card, except for the main event, is really cool and strong and should be fun to watch. You can't pass up Francis Ngannou right now, and that's the problem that Bellator is going up against going to this card. But anyway, all that aside, we actually do have some fights to talk about here. And first of all, Eddie, I want to get your thoughts. Anything you're looking forward to on the prelim card here?
Yes, I would say Joey Davis, of course. He's must-watch wrestling standout from Notre Dame. You know, he's only 2-0 right now, but definitely worth keeping an eye on. I'm not saying he might go out and have this insane, technically advanced performance, but, you know, he's been doing pretty damn well, picked up a knockout in his last win, so definitely worth keeping an eye on, definitely worth seeing if he can blossom into, you know, one of these stereotypical wrestler turned MMA fighters who use their base to go on and do actually pretty well. So worth watching.
And Vic?
Yeah, I'm actually interested in a few of these here. Obviously the Joey Davis fight. He's been a very pleasant addition to the Bellator roster, along with the other wrestling phenoms such as Tyrell Fortune and Ed Ruth. Haim Ghazali can be a little hit or miss when it comes to excitement, but I love his jiu-jitsu, so I'm going to be certainly checking that out. You might also want to pay attention to the Vasconcelos and Casilla fight. You may remember Vasconcelos as being part of the UFC Ultimate Fighter Brazil, I think it was the first season. I don't exactly remember which, but he's been pretty fun to watch. He's had some pretty cool performances. He's taking on a really tough Ivan Castillo. I want to give a big shout out to my mainest man, David Duran, who's on the card. Hey, quiet. Daddy's doing a thing, talking to perverts. He's going to be fighting Kyle Estrada, who's a hard-nosed wrestler out of the California scene. So, yeah, that should be pretty fun. There's a few nice matchups here on this prelim card.
Other things worth noting, I want to give a quick shout-out. Chad George is fighting again, former WEC action fighter.
True, yeah.
And then heading up the entire prelims, cannot go without mentioning this. The debut of Hoist Gracie's son, Conry Gracie. And I can't even say that name without kind of like my voice cracking a little weird. It's very much like all the Gracie names, like Con, or, you know, Hoist.
and Hoist. And
yeah. They all make me just sort of like cough a little.
Except this one's with a K, and it's got that weird Latin American misuse of the H. Yeah. It's just thrown in there for, I guess, for visual flair. I don't know.
Or do you think it's Hanhi Gracie with the R?
You know, that would be so hilarious if that were true. I doubt it, but I mean,
Hanhi Gracie.
Hanhi. Like, is that a Chinese fighter? Who's that? Tough China? Hanhi Gracie?
Yeah. So he's only had one amateur fight before this, but he's making his pro debut against another debuting fighter in Devin Brook. Currently scheduled as the main prelim for Bellator, but the thing with Bellator prelims and bout order is that whatever anybody has listed, including Bellator itself, is just a guess. On the night, in the moment, they will just throw fights anywhere from all these prelim bouts. I'm sure they've come in with an actual list of how they want it sorted, but watching from home, it's always like, I think this dude's fighting next. Maybe, okay, whatever. They've already put somebody else out into the cage. I don't know.
Also, due to time constraints, you may end up with a post-lim or two, depending on how they go. There's 18 fights in total.
Yeah, this card's fucking huge, so half of these are going to end up as dark bouts afterward. We never really know which one.
Yeah.
On that note, though, there aren't any big like veteran fights on the prelims or things that I feel like we really need to go into. There aren't any odds for the prelims or any of that. So we're just going to dive straight into the main card and open up with our first bout of the night, a featherweight bout, Aaron Pico versus Shane Crutchin. And Vic, what do you think of this?
Yeah, this is going to be a weird one. Let's start off with Crutchin, who had been, he's 33, and he's also, been competing pretty consistently at featherweight with a really nice stretch of wins that he had after losing his first two fights. Spent some time in World Series of Fighting in XFS. He started off in the Gladiator Challenge thing, he fought in all sorts of weird little organizations on the California scene before ending up in Gladiator Challenge. And now he's making his way over to Bellator after some time with World Series, eventually became PFL. And I guess he didn't want to sit out the waiting time before they actually set up a fight with whatever the hell they're doing over there.
Bankruptcy.
Yeah,
the fight with bankruptcy court.
They're staving off something heavy, but I got to give it to him, man. He's tough. He's persistent. He's worked on his takedown defense. His submission defense looks pretty decent, and everything in his game is functional, and he's pretty fast with his foot speed. Pretty decent boxing too, and he's definitely capable of giving Pico a lot of trouble. Thing is that Pico, as we saw, I don't think that his debut should be weighed as heavily against him as some people are actually taking it. I don't think he's a bust. I think it's just a matter of a young fighter who is biting a little more than he can chew in debut against someone like a crafty dude like Zach Freeman. I don't know, man. I think his athleticism and his wrestling ability may, in fact, carry him a little further here. Problem I'm having right now is Pico showed in his last fight that he's way too hittable and he's way too willing to get hit in order to give that big shot. And that's exactly where I think he's going to be getting into a lot of trouble with damage that'll add up at the hands of Crutchin. So I know that Crutchin's probably the smart money off the bat, but I think that Pico's probably going to be able to dominate in this one in terms of grappling. But he's going to have to eat some shots first. Whether or not he can weather that storm, that's going to be the big thing. But after that, if he can take a few hits, that's pretty much something that he's going to be able to take.
Odds makers do not agree with you on the smart money. I'll read the odds in a minute. But Eddie, what are your thoughts?
I don't think I agree either with the smart money. I think it's smart to not bet on this, especially since Pico proved in his first bout that he's definitely capable of just getting ran through. Granted, that was at a heavier weight class, and you know he this is his first time actually fighting at 145, right?
No, he fought 145 last time out too.
Did he?
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing that on Tapology. Weighed in at 144.5.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, good on him then. But still, he's so young in his career. Like I can't even. I'm not gonna put too much stock in him. I'm gonna pick him just due to the hype and due to the fact that he did score that beautiful left hook knockout in his sophomore appearance. You know, guys who catch knockouts like that, it's not a fluke, and B, it shows a certain level of technical ability if you're sleeping people with a left hook like that. And we'll get into that when we talk about Douglas Lima. But I like that a lot. It really backs up his Golden Glove experience and shows that he's not just a one-trick pony. He's not just a wrestler hoping to evolve. He's already someone dangerous on the feet and potentially dangerous in the wrestling department. We haven't really seen that yet in an MMA fight, but you know, that's probably more than likely the deal. So I'm going to pick Pico here. I'm still with him. I still think he's a talent. I think he can still turn into something. We've seen plenty of guys lose their first fight. Perfect example, Jimmy Rivera, and look at him. So I'm gonna go Pico here. I think Shane Crutchin, even though he does have the experience edge here, he really has been missing a whole lot of time from these fights. So, you know, he's fought two times in the past 4 years, right? So that doesn't exactly – I don't think his experience edge is going to translate into the cage as well as it might seem on paper. So.
Odds makers opened wide on Pico, and it's only gotten wider since then. Aaron Pico opened at -705 and stayed right around there for a while and has now dropped just in the past day or so down to 826 and is now at 848. So
too big, in my opinion. Too wide.
Yeah. Crutchin is at +435. Opened at +435, and then, like I said, just about a day ago, jumped up to about +545 and is now +554. So, anytime you got a 1-1 guy going into his third pro bout, betting like that wide is a little crazy.
That's more than a little crazy. Yeah, I got questions. Yeah, I agree with Eddie. I'd probably stay away from that.
He's certainly not a sure. He's not as much a sure thing as that should ever be considered. That brings us to another featherweight bout on the main card. However, Georgi Karkanyan versus Henry Corrales. And Eddie, what are your thoughts here?
I'm super excited for this fight. This is a legit ass featherweight fight, with the winner having somewhat of some relevance as far as moving on, possible title run. You got Henry Corrales, who had the gnarliest baptism by fire getting into the Bellator promotion. He faced Daniel Strauss, Emmanuel Sanchez, and Patricio Pitbull in consecutive fights, which I wouldn't wish on anybody. Like, that's brutal. That's absolutely brutal. So then he takes a step down in competition. He fights Cody Bollinger last January and absolutely brutalizes this guy. I mean, what he did to Bollinger was criminal. He was ripping off some of the most beautiful body shots like you'll ever see. Like, the way he took him apart was fun to watch. It was surgical, and it was awesome. And then he went on to face Noad Lahat in Israel, and you know, he did pretty damn well. I feel like he was in control for most of the fight, and when the opportunity presented itself, he was willing to go for the takedown and play top position, even though his opponent was, you know, on paper the much better grappler. He was still willing to go there, and he did rather well. Now, I feel like he's refocused with training at the MMA lab, and I think he's really well-rounded, and he definitely can throw his hands, and he showed that he can grapple pretty well. He's finished 11 of his 14 wins. Something that he will definitely have to look out for here, though, is the guillotine of Georgie Karakhanyan, the same one he used to put Bubba Jenkins to sleep. So Strauss and Pitbull caught Corrales with the guillotine. So that's definitely something he needs to, whatever he does, be careful about. He has to protect the neck. Karakhanyan, on the other hand, dangerous subs. He has knockout power. He has the experience to get against the top fighters, but he's not to be trusted. Georgie Karakhanyan is not to be trusted. He's not consistent. He's 4-4 in his last 8 fights. He's dangerous. He's finished his past 6 wins dating back to 2013. So he's dangerous, and he really only loses by decision, or at least as of late. So, more than likely this fight is going to get into the third round. And I think it's gonna be really tight. Karakhanyan only really loses to world champions and contenders, and Rick Glenn, who went on to the UFC. So, Georgie, he's a gatekeeper here, man. If Georgie wins, Corrales goes to the back of the line. If Corrales wins, and he's in a position to get back some of those losses. So I expect a really competitive bout, but I think Corrales is going to be the one that gets through it and picks up the decision.
Vic, you going with Corrales as well?
I actually am, yeah. And I think it's got more to do with the fact that I feel that Karakhanyan is probably going to have a bit more difficulty with someone who's not only going to be able to pressure him with a little more volume than he's used to, but also have a little bit more of a diverse striking game. Corrales is able to still mix up his body shots and his leg kicks, as well as some kicks to the body every now and then. So I think that's something that, a lot of his opponents haven't really put together as well, especially someone who can wrestle and who's, I always put a lot of stock into John Crouch's tutelage, maybe a little more than I ought to. I don't know. But I just kind of feel that those guys prepare so well for some of their fights against someone like Karakhanyan, who's got much more of a veteran edge. I think they've kind of studied and seen what he's capable of doing. Also, I'm a little wary of Corrales' submission defense. I don't know if it's just the guillotine that he needs to be worried about. I really do think that George is probably going to be a little craftier than just that. He's going to have more options off his back, or at least opportunities to start working things from half guard or be able to sweep him and end up with top position. That's, I think, where things are going to be a little more interesting in terms of submission battle. But, yeah, I don't know, man. I want to pick Georgie. My heart's with him, but I kind of think that Corrales is in, the right spot right now to be able to beat him, seeing where both of them are in their careers. That's not to say Georgie's done, and that's not to say that Corrales is a future champion. I'm just saying that, there's sort of this weird hit or miss thing going on with Georgie where, he'll either give you a tremendous finish or, just a really good fight that ends up with a win, or he'll falter against opposition that perhaps wasn't expected. So I don't know, man. I think the safest option here would be to go with Corrales.
Well, I would disagree if it weren't for the Emmanuel Sanchez loss. And that's the one question I would have with Karakhanyan, because otherwise the losses he takes are pretty much two dudes that are tough enough to push through him and can physically handle him and take him down or rough him up, Right. Even the Rick Glenn loss is an injury, so you can't even just say oh well, he just got knocked out or got handled by Rick Glenn. But otherwise, you got Patrick Curran and Daniel Weichel and Patricio Pitbull and Joe Warren, and that's it, going all the way back to some dude named Chris David in 2008.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I feel like this is the gatekeeper match.
Yeah, it is. It absolutely is. Because against elite guys, against the very cream of the crop, big, athletic dudes who can take a shot, who can punish Karakhanyan for his lack of wrestling game, Karakhanyan loses those fights. But also Emmanuel Sanchez? Is Emmanuel Sanchez that dude now? Maybe. Or is Karakhanyan just not quite the dude he used to be?
Well, no, Sanchez is definitely that dude. He just choked out Daniel Strauss, so
true.
He's definitely that dude.
Which surprises me, because I wouldn't have thought it really from watching Emmanuel Sanchez's early career that he would become that dude.
Yeah, he was much more of a guy who was able to win rounds and stuff, but you know, actually actively getting a submission, a finish like that. That was
like a dude who split decisions, Justin Lawrence and Daniel Pineda, is then going out and choking out Daniel Strauss. That,
man,
you know, that's growth, man. That shows growth.
Yeah, it does. It shows
to your
growth
other
that I didn't
point,
expect.
I think you're also right about Karakhanyan on the down slump. You know, I think that's very fair also. So it's like the perfect storm in his Sanchez fight was this surging up and comer against someone who's, you know, heading towards the end of their career, and you got the gatekeeper popping up.
Yeah. Even if he's not on the slide, he's pretty damn close to it. And I mean, his last few performances have not really, I don't know what to make of it. If he's really, you know, done with his athletic prime or his fighting prime or what the case may be, but maybe the game the game is passing him by, or he's being figured out. I don't know.
Or maybe his initials are GK because he's the gatekeeper.
Oh, you know what?
I'm sorry.
You are both the fucking worst and best.
All right. All right. Odds. Karakhanyan opened at -150, adjusted up to -120, currently riding at -119. Corrales opened at +110, adjusted down to -100, currently at -107. So odds makers have this dead even.
Which, as it should be, I think.
Yeah.
I think it'll be real competitive here.
I might lean towards Karakhanyan here, honestly. I don't know that I've seen the definitive performance over somebody as athletic as Karakhanyan from Corrales to make me believe that he takes it. But
it's gonna be good.
Yeah. That brings us to a lightweight bout. Michael Chandler taking on Goiti Yamauchi in a weirdly, we've passed by the champion to make a new top contenders bout fight. So
I heard there was something weird, like they couldn't get the deal done for whatever reason, and Chandler was like, you know what, screw it, I'm done with Primus, I'm moving on.
Yeah, maybe. It's just odd that Primus is out there like, I wanted to fight, and I needed some time off before this, but I've been ready now. And there's just, Coker's like, yeah, well, he'll fight soon, whatever. Anyway, Vic, who you got here? Chandler Yamauchi.
Yeah, I mean, Yamauchi's really improved when it comes to defending against guys that are very top-heavy wrestlers or guys that are really savvy about using their top control. I just don't think I can give him the edge here regardless. This is a different kind of animal. This is a better conditioned athlete than anyone he's fought, a far better striker than a lot of the guys that he's fought. I'm not really sure what options he's got other than some kind of weird Hail Mary submission. And even then, I really am confident in Chandler's abilities than to say that Yamauchi really has much of an opportunity to win this. Can he? Yes. Is it likely? Fuck no. I really got to go with Chandler on the way on this, and probably by some kind of TKO somewhere in maybe the second or third round.
All right, Eddie.
Well, let me ask this. Was Brent Primus's win over Michael Chandler a fluke?
No. Not really. No. Not really. I mean, look, it was kind of premature in the sense that, like, well, no, not premature. Like, we didn't really see the entirety of it. One more round probably would have been necessary for that. But the fact that he wasn't doing much to defend the leg kicks,
it wasn't a fluke in the sense that no time a fighter tries to hurt their opponent and hurts their opponent is a fluke.
Yeah,
like it's like the thing where Mark Coleman breaking Shogun's arm.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's kind of fluky, but at the same time, he picked a guy up and slammed him, and it hurt him. Like, I mean, it does not seem like the outcome. If Michael Chandler and Brent Primus fight again, which I think they will at some point, I would still expect Michael Chandler to beat Brent Primus.
I think that's fair. I don't think it's a fluke. From what I saw.
Oh, sure. Throw that out there and then throw me under the bus after all of it.
Well, no. I mean, you made a very good point.
Just keep going.
Very good point. But, I mean, basically, I watched it over and over again, and just the way it happened, it was a failed defensive maneuver in response to an offensive strike by Primus.
Yeah.
So it's not like Chandler was just standing there and he happened to roll his shit. Like, he tried to move out of the way in a funky, awkward kind of manner, and it didn't work out. So he made a mistake, and the mistake cost him. You know, so I think it's a legit win. But you know, again, like you're saying, if they fought 100 times, any of those times would you pick Chandler to lose? Definitely not.
I would pick Chandler to win 7 out of 10, 70 out of 100.
I would give him more than that, honestly.
I'd give him more. That's fair.
Chandler has enough funky losses to top competition that I would not. I don't look at Chandler as like unbeatable. You know, this is the dude who had the weird like, where am I? What, you know, am I fighting even when he got hit by Will Brooks?
Will Brooks and Eddie Alvarez.
I know. I'm not saying that he's losing to bad people. I'm just saying he doesn't win so often. You know, it's not like Prime Fedor where I'm like, you know, you're not like, oh yeah, okay. On one side we've got the Colossus Josh Thompson, and on the other side we've.
It's not that bad for sure. But so, man, Chandler. All right, forget Premise and Chandler. Like that'll be another day.
Exactly.
But against Yamauchi, Chandler has the wrestling edge here. He has the power edge in terms of physical strength and the ability to knock someone out with a single punch. He has the experience edge. However, he's older now. He has higher miles, and he's starting to lose by injury. And his first loss, like you were talking about, Zane, was followed by 2 more losses. So he could be one of those fighters who goes on losing skids. Like that could be a thing here. Yamauchi, on the other hand, 22-3, 8-2 in Bellator. He is coming off this insane win over Adam Piccolotti, where he looked absolutely phenomenal. He looked focused. He looked technical. He looked like a top-tier fighter, and it was in a fight where it was a strength versus strength matchup. You know, he subbed a BJJ guy with relative ease, and that was phenomenal. And he's a BJJ guy who is a finisher. He stopped 19 of his 22 wins. A whole bunch of first-round finishes. His last 3 wins were in the first round. But we've also seen him get submissions late. We saw him sub Kobayashi in the 3rd round. So, I mean, he's dangerous for the complete fight, all 3 rounds. And he can recover from a big shot. We saw him when he fought over in Italy. The local guy caught him early with a bomb and dropped him. And Yamauchi recovered, gained his wits, and came back to get the submission in the same round. So, you know, that's pretty tough to do, actually, especially coming back with a submission like that. That's definitely hard. So he's got the pretty strikes, but he does leave his head right there for the taking. He really doesn't take it off center, and that's what got him hurt in that fight in Italy. So he can be vulnerable when he strikes, but at least he can, you know, take a shot and recover. Another question I have about Yamauchi's ground game is whether or not his jiu-jitsu can be effective against someone who's a great wrestler. You know, when he lost that decision to Bubba Jenkins, it was like, like you're getting neutralized here, buddy. Like, you know, for as awesome as you are, if you're facing someone who is excellent with top position or controlling, then you might struggle a little bit.
Yeah, it's not like Chandler's ever been submitted.
Fuck no. You know, and he can also be a force on top as well, Ken Chandler. So Yamauchi's untested in my eyes. This is like his first real big step up. He hasn't fought this kind of caliber opponent yet. So I think we're going to kind of see what he's made of here. End of the day, though, I don't trust Chandler. He might be this guy on a losing skid. So I do not trust Chandler. But I can't pick the untested up-and-comer whose fundamental game is to out-grapple and submit your opponent against a powerhouse in Chandler who has never been submitted, who has a strong wrestling base, and can also knock someone out on the feet. So it seems like an even worse matchup for Yamauchi than Bubba Jenkins here. But again, Chandler's not to be trusted, but I'm still picking him by decision.
You almost stopped my heart there for a moment.
Hey, I think it's important to mention that Chandler is not to be trusted. This is not a gimme for Chandler.
I think so. Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
I think that at the very elite levels, that may be true. Like Chandler just seems to have gaps in his game, things that don't work or flow right in ways that you would expect them to,
and things that are compensated for with his just sheer athleticism.
Yeah. Like he has the kind of athleticism that blows lesser competition way out of the water. And then when he has somebody who can match his athleticism, you start to see the gaps in his style. But it's kind of like Yoel Romero in that way, a little. Where it's like you put Yoel Romero in against,
Robert Whitaker.
Yeah, exactly. You put him against Robert Whitaker, suddenly it's full of gaps. There's all these gaps in his game. You put him in against somebody else, and you put him in against, Lyoto Machida at this point in his career, and he just kind of hangs out with him until he decides he wants him dead, and then he
throws him to the ground.
All right. Chandler opened at -380, adjusted up to -298, is currently at -300, so that's staying pretty even. Yamauchi opened at +260, adjusted down to +239, currently at +236. So not a lot of movement on those lines after they've opened.
And there probably shouldn't be. I feel like they are right where they should be, making them no value.
Yeah.
So.
All right, that brings us to our co-main event. Welterweight title fight, the real main event by all means, except for all the marks out there, and there are enough marks to make Jackson Sonnen the main event make sense.
A lot of rubes.
But our co-main event, welterweight bout, Douglas Lima, Rory McDonald, and Eddie. How you seeing this one?
I'm seeing this as one of the best fights of the evening. The number 3 fight of the night, if not number 2. Number 1 being Ngannou. Stipe, of course. DC, Ozdemir might be number 2, could be number 3. But this is as legit as it gets. One of the most legit Bellator fights that they've put on in a while. Man, Douglas Lima. He gets no respect, I feel like. No one knows who Douglas Lima is. And that's sad because he's really, really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
So he was the Bellator champion, and he loses his title to Koreshkov. I believe he had some knee injuries going on at the time, or something like that.
Something like that.
So, Koreshkov or Lima comes back. He defeats Paul Daly, rematches Koreshkov, knocks him out, wins his belt back, faces Lorenz Larkin.
Yep,
and beats him pretty easily. I mean, it was he earned it. I mean, it
was a pretty one-sided fight, honestly, a shockingly one.
Yeah, and now here we are, where he's fighting another top-tier welterweight that everyone's counting him out of, and no one's really, I feel like, giving him the respect he deserves. And that's a little unfair. And after his win against Larkin, which that fight went exactly kind of how I thought it was going to, but he was talking to Jimmy
exactly
Smith.
Right on that. You get all the credit.
He was indicating. I'm wrong way more than I'm right, though.
Yeah, but that's why we got to credit you when you are right. We got to make it a big deal.
Fair enough. But yeah, he's talking to Jimmy Smith after the Larkin win, and he says that he was thrown off a bit when Larkin would switch to southpaw. And then I was like, why would he be thrown off by Larkin switching to southpaw? And then it dawned on me. It's because the most devastating. All right, so Lima, right? His strengths, you got his kicks, leg, body, head. You got his right hand, which is heavy. And then you got his left hook, which is devastating. And if you look, you'll notice that it's powerful, it's well-timed, and especially against orthodox fighters. So when Larkin was switching to southpaw, it was taking away Lima's go-to left hook that he sets up really well. So then it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense why he said, Larkin was giving him fits. And, that left hook, that could be really effective against someone with a really abused face like Rory McDonald. Like his face has taken, it wouldn't take but one of those left hooks to open up Rory's nose and then, make it some sort of war after that point. But the left hook is potent. Through the first round, he dropped Daly. He caught Koreshkov in the third, or was it the second round of their fight, or third round maybe?
Third round.
Then he caught Lorenz Larkin in the second, I believe, with the left hook. So it's tough to deal with, and he sets it up with a jousting jab, which I like to see. It's not like one of these quick little rangefinder jabs. It's like a jab that'll put you on your ass if your stance isn't proper.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, Lima is so dangerous here. Downsides, he loves the counter so much it has him spectating at times. His volume can be low, even though his power's high. And he's struggled in the past to get up against great grapplers. Askren was able to hold him down. Even Koreshkov had success holding him down. So if those guys are doing it, well, Askren aside, if Koreshkov is holding him down or getting him down, well, you know, there's a good chance Rory can probably do the same thing. Another big weakness of Lima's is the fact that he backs up a lot. Like, it doesn't take much to pressure him and get him going backwards until his back is up against the cage. And you know who else does that well, pressuring people backwards? Rory McDonald. I think he spent the entire Tyron Woodley fight with Woodley's back up against the cage.
Yeah, that's actually that's a good point, because that is literally the very, very best version of Rory, is the guy who, if you back up and you give him time, Tyron Woodley did it, and it totally wrecked the fight for Tyron Woodley.
Yeah. And that worry, that concerns me about Lima, because Koreshkov was able to do it and use that as the entry point to his double leg takedown, which he was getting. So Lima really has to be careful. But there's something that Lima has that you'll see from fighters like Robbie Lawler and Patricio Pitbull, Fedor Emelianenko, and that's the ability to throw a one-hitter quitter when they're being pressured and their back is to the fence. They can remain calm and know where they are in space and time and bite down and throw that one nasty heater that can just completely change the direction of the fight. So, you know, that's important. It's going to be interesting what happens when it actually gets to that point. Rory, on the other hand, man, his debut was everything you would expect from a top shelf former UFC title contender. He comes out, he sticks Paul Daly in the face, takes him down, and just runs shop. I mean, I gave Rory a 10-8 in that first round. I mean, completely lopsided. Second round, more of the same. He was so aggressive that his jiu-jitsu was sloppy. Like, Rory was out there knowing that he was so much better that he just said, screw the space. I'm gonna put on this sloppy grappling display, but still be dominant and get the submission. And that's exactly what he did. But that's Paul Daly. You know what I mean? Everyone's taking down Paul Daly. So how much stock can we put in that performance? It was great, and it's what he should have done. But I honestly don't feel like it tells us that much. Rory, you know, I try to come up with his weaknesses. And number one, you have to go with the mileage. The wars he was in, the damage he's taken. That's, in my opinion, his biggest weakness. And that's saying a lot, you know, if that's his weakness. Everything else is pretty fundamentally sound. But another thing is, and we saw this when he fought Stephen Thompson, if Rory's game plan is to get you down to the ground, but he can't, then he's going to struggle. You know, Rory's he's one of those guys who has to know or has to feel like he's winning at the end of each round. And if he's not, then I feel like there's an opportunity for the other guy to stay in it. Like when he fought Robbie Lawler, at no point in that fight did he feel like he was winning it. When he fought Daly, he went back to that after the first round, he goes back to his corner knowing without a shadow of a doubt this fight's over. So I think Lima is going to have to inflict damage early. He has to take the first two rounds and most of the second round. Or I think there's a good chance that Rory might take over late. Oh man, what's that?
Who are you picking?
Sorry, there's just so much to this fight, man. I could really go on for days and days about this. Is there going to be a finish? I don't think so. When was the last time Lima was in trouble on his feet? I don't recall it ever happening. When was the last time Rory was in trouble on the ground? Carlos Khan did, but that was like a really, really, really long time ago. So I don't think anyone's going to get the finish here. I think it's going to go to a decision, and I think it's going to come down to who spends more time in their world. Can Rory get Lima to the ground? Probably if Koreshkov did. Will Lima be able to get up, though? That's what we don't know. But what if Rory cannot get the takedown?
What if you pick the fight? What if you pick the side here?
It's not that easy, man. Like, there's so many variables to this fight. Like, there's ins and there's outs, and it really has the makings for a split decision. It could be an epic war. It could be a stale, boring fight full of feints and top control. But at the end of the day, I will be taking Douglas Lima by split decision. I think
All right.
Advantage. I think he will count. That will count more than the control of Rory, and I think he will finally start to get the respect he deserves as one of the very best 170 pounders on the planet.
Vic, I finally cornered Eddie into making a pick. What's your take on this?
If it makes you feel any better, you won't have to chase me around like Benny Hill in a montage to get an answer out of me. Okay. It's funny you brought up the Condit McDonald fight because that fight ended right about the time you started talking, Eddie. So that's good. No. Okay, so I do agree on some fronts, and the thing is, what I'm finding most curious about this is I'm wondering if Rory McDonald's nose and his face are ending up in the same kind of situation like Josh Koscheck and his orbital bone, where like he just gets hit there one or two times and then immediately everything starts going bad. And I mean, I'm not saying that that's like a primary concern. That's something that's kind of on the back burner here, but still maybe kind of important.
Sure, we don't have enough evidence of it yet, but it's
right. I don't want to put too much into that because of exactly that. Like I'm not saying that he's cracked yet, but shit, maybe it's something that might start developing, and if it happens, it'll probably be here. Lima hits super hard. He was able to get a read on Koreshkov in that rematch and absolutely blast him. Watching his evolution since that loss to Ben Askren, watching the improvements in his game and how well he's been able to adapt, how much more athletic his style is, and how patient he's been, not just choosing when to engage, but also really being a lot better about when to gun out for those counters. I think he's fighting a hell of a lot smarter now. And as much of a challenge as McDonald is going to be, primarily with his excellent use of his jab, his timing, his use of range, his strength as well. I mean, just another large welterweight. I actually think that Lima might be able to put together a very solid game of not only taking out his legs, preventing the takedown as well, being able to be a consistent threat with his striking and mixing up his levels, and then eventually figuring out the timing and really hurt Rory over the course of the fight. I don't know. I'm kind of thinking that maybe at some point late in the fight, he might actually be able to finish Rory. I don't know why. I'm not exactly sure. I mean, I know it's a kind of I don't want to say bold, really. It sounds like a pretty reckless pick, but I'm kind of going with that. I'm feeling Lima here riding this momentum. I mean, he's been fighting pretty well. We saw how well he handled Larkin, how much more composed he was. Obviously, this is a very different animal and a much larger guy who's got a wealth of experience and has fought better opposition and, in fact, beaten better opposition. But I don't know, man. I think Lima's got this. I think he's going to win.
All right. I'm taking Rory, and I'm taking him principally on the point that Eddie brought up, which is how ready Douglas Lima is to concede space. And counter fighters who work off their back foot have never beaten Rory McDonald. That has never been a fight that Rory McDonald has lost. All of the fights he's lost.
Well, no, Stephen Thompson.
Stephen Thompson in that fight spent the whole fight going forward and pressure countering.
So that was
it was all pushing Rory back and making Rory react to him and getting the counters off reactions. He won that fight. Stephen Thompson can counter, and he is a pure counter fighter, but he did not win that by going backwards and countering.
I feel like he won that using his movement more so than anything.
And I don't think Lima does it. I don't think Lima's going to do that. I don't think Lima's going to go out and pressure to counter Rory McDonald. I think he's going to concede the range, concede the space, and look for the counters in a way like Tyron Woodley did, in that fight, or like BJ Penn tried to in his fight with Rory, and where guys get stuck on the fence and then they just get pieced up by him.
And the volume of Lima's an issue too. He's the guy that slumps people with one punch, but that's never happened to Rory.
Yeah.
So is Lima going to be putting combinations together? Because he'll do it with his kicks, but not really with his hands.
So I'm picking Rory on that.
I'm glad you did, because the smart pick is Rory. Like, that's the all day, hands down. Before I even did any kind of research for this, I was like Rory all day. But after going,
I love that you love Lima. and I think there's a good shot he wins. There are questions about McDonald. There are. I don't want to pretend that there aren't. And that TriStar style he has, like, you know, one of the things in the Thompson fight that came up was that he was just like trying to roll for leg locks and shit. And like he's just sort of added these weird elements to his game that are very much a TriStar specific, like this is the theory of how we fight, that don't work all that well, honestly. And I just kind of Firas Zahabi's tinkering with the MMA metagame. So maybe that's just in his head too. I don't know. But I'm picking him here. He's the favorite with the odds makers. Open minus 265, adjusted up and down to minus 230, currently at minus 243. It's been pretty stable off after the initial adjustment. And Douglas Lima opening at plus 185, adjusting up and down to plus 185, and then moving up and down a little to plus 193 on Douglas Lima. So those odds, especially in the last couple days, getting a little bit wider.
I don't think it's a good move to bet on this fight. I think there's just too many unknowns with how good Rory might actually still be or might not be.
That brings us to our main event. And please don't spend as much time talking about this fight as we did the last one. Quentin Jackson, Chael Sonnen, and Vic, who are you taking?
Is this a serious question? Are we really okay? Look, the only guarantee that I can give you on this is that this fight's going to be ugly as sin. All right, if you saw the fight against Vanderlei, yeah, sure, Sonnen got cracked a few times, but it wasn't anything super awesome. It was just a matter of taking Vanderlei down and then smothering him, which is fine.
That's his fight. That the fight wasn't on the mat, Sonnen got hurt as badly as he did. Like that was probably the principal thing that I was worried about. For a dude that used to hurt Anderson Silva standing, like for like 30 seconds of fighting on the feet with a 50-year-old Vanderlei, to be like, oh my God, is he gonna get knocked out?
Yeah, and you know, he did suffer some minor scares, but it wasn't really enough to be a major thing. But Rampage is going to be trying to fight and shuck off the takedowns. He'll be much more successful than Vanderlei in that department, unless he comes in out of shape, because again, he doesn't have to cut weight. So I mean, is he really going to be motivated? What's that going to look like? Yeah, he's going to turn to Burger Page. Like, you really want that? You want this motherfucker looking like Eggplant Wizard coming in here and trying to slug it out and then complain that he didn't get a boxing match even though he signed on for an MMA fight, as usual? What is there really? There's no real good ending to this. I don't like the fact that they were paired off against each other. Clearly, this is most likely for Rampage. I guess, I don't know. It seems to me like Bellator maybe wanted to favor him to win, and they gave him a guy that won't be able to take him down easily and might have to eat a few shots, giving us an ugly decision. And I don't know, man. I kind of think Sonnen's eventually going to be able to wear him down, tire him out, and take him down later on, and then just smother him from there. I can't put that kind of faith in Rampage, dude. I can't. I'm sorry. A guy who keeps coming in terrible shape, and then, he doesn't really, I don't know. He's got
a thyroid issue, man.
Oh, does he? Yeah. All right. Well, that's all I had to say about that. I'm done.
Is it the thyroid issue that also pushes his love for tiny Asian women?
I don't know anything about that.
No, that's just his brand.
Yeah, that's just his brand. All right. Yeah. Eddie, who are you picking on this?
What was weird? So in the rematch with King Mo and Rampage, I thought it was really odd to see Rampage take a back step on the feet. Like, that was odd. Like, when is Rampage ever backing up on the feet? Like, what was that about? But you know what? He's not going to show Chael that same sort of respect. You know what I mean? I don't think he'll be taking a backward step at all. And Rampage actually stuffed all of King Mo's takedowns for rounds 2 and 3 in that rematch. So if King Mo's not getting Rampage down, there ain't no way in hell Chael Sonnen's getting Rampage down. And Chael got dropped by Wanderlei in that fight. Are you kidding me? Like, his takedowns were on point, but you're getting dropped by a 2017 Wanderlei. There is no doubt in my mind that there's a great chance that Sonnen's going to sleep here. You want to Chael can take down Wanderlei. Rampage is a different animal, an animal that can actually stuff takedowns late in a fight and is big enough to be able to hurt you simply by touching you because he's the bigger man. So I'm taking Rampage by first round TKO.
It is worth noting, actually, I didn't realize this, but we are definitely getting some Fat Page in here. He weighed 253 pounds for his last fight against King Mo. 253.
Yeah.
Against Satoshi Ishii, 225. That's like, he's never before that weighed more than 210.
And I'm not joking about that thyroid issue either.
Like, yeah, no, I'm sure you're not.
He's legit on medicine and stuff now.
I just can't take anything about Rampage seriously and never will. I don't care. He could have his arm like hanging off, and I'd be like, yeah, you.
I love how everybody, like he was on TRT, he was bragging about how awesome it was, and then it got outlawed, and nobody asked him about that ever again. He's like the only guy from that crew that like no one ever addressed it. Like, hey, you don't miss it? You were good. So what was that like, that regimen? Nope, didn't happen.
Worth noting as well, also in this whole mishmash matchup, is just how terrible a fighter Chael Sonnen has classically been at light heavyweight and above. Like, his wins are a 2013 Mauricio Hua, which was still kind of a miracle. The general thought there is that even Sonnen was surprised that he got that submission. And then Vonderlei, and then what's his last other win at 205 pounds?
Oh no, that was a middleweight.
He lost to Babalu, and then beat Tim Williams in 2005. Lost to Terry Martin.
He lost to Terry Martin?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Terry Martin got a win? What?
In 2004.
Yeah.
Still.
Jeremy Horn beat him twice. Forrest Griffin beat him.
No, Jeremy Horn beat him 3 times, I think.
No, 3 times. Either way.
I think they're all triangles too. Or was it like 2 of them were triangles, some shit like that?
As a power wrestler, Chael Sonnen's power wrestling game has kind of tended to vanish when he's not bigger than his opponent.
Chael Sonnen got submitted in 2003 by Forrest Griffin.
Yeah. And I kind of feel like that's really the story here. Is it against somebody as big as Rampage, Sonnen's just not going to be effective.
Dude, Sonnen's been submitted 9 times. 9. And knocked out 5.
Remember how incredibly badly Rashad Evans beasted him in 2013 at 205? Just like threw him around the cage and knocked him out.
It might be
that should not have happened.
All right. On that note, we're going to wrap this thing up. You can find me on Twitter at odds. I have to give odds for this trash fire. Rampage opened at -120, adjusted down to -150, and is currently at -171. Sonnen opened at -120 as well, adjusted up to +117, is currently at +140. So that's fine. That feels right to me. Sonnen should be a slight underdog, and nobody should trust Rampage because a 250-pound Rampage Jackson is just not a dude who's trying that hard. You can find me on Twitter at TheZaneSam. You can find Eddie on Twitter at TheEddieMercado. You can find Vic on Twitter at Vic M. Rodriguez. You can find all 3 of us over at BloodyElbow.com. Give our video a like over on YouTube. That's the thumbs up thing down there. And subscribe to our YouTube channel, MMANation.com, DOTCOM, all spelled out. So you get all the latest Bloody Elbow shows, videos, news, analysis, all that stuff we do week in, week out. We will be back next week for UFC on Fox or some bullshit.
We got a Bellator 193, Larkin versus Gonzalez.
Larkin versus Gonzalez.
Yeah.
And which excited for that. And a UFC event that I remember Fox talking 27. About yesterday and was just like, really?
UFC on Fox 27, Jacare versus Brunson 2.
Oh, that's right. Jacare Brunson 2, the rematch we've all been clamoring for.
It's finally here.
Oh boy, I can barely keep my panties on.
Jordan Rinaldi is on a Fox card for the UFC. And so is Drew Dober. Good times.
Yep, and Godofredo Pepe, so
Not on the main card, though.
Oh, no. Okay.
Rinaldi and Dober are on the main card of a Fox.
It's a four-fight main card?
Yep, because it's Fox. It's a big Fox.
That's a Strikeforce Challengers card. That's the fuck that is. This.
It is. It is a Strikeforce Challengers card.
Fucking Christ.
All right. On that note, thanks everyone for tuning in, and we will see you next time.